I've said this a million times by now, but we're starting to get into the times. We are going into trade talk territory now, guys. We're still talking about the playoffs, sure, but the biggest stories, the biggest conversations that are going around the hockey world are slowly becoming trade conversations. Let's head over to Elliotte Friedman on the recent 32 Thoughts podcast episode and look at a quote he had regarding Philadelphia Flyers goaltender Carter Hart. Last time we had talked about Hart, we went over the comments made by Danny Briere, Flyers' new GM, going out there and saying that he has to listen to all offers. Not that Carter Hart is necessarily getting shopped, but if somebody goes out there and asks Briere about him, he's got to go out there and listen. Like, he's got to do his due diligence and explore what it is teams would be willing to get for this type of a player. Or not get, but give up for this player, excuse me. The last video went over all you need to know. Carter Hart is young. He's only 24 years old. He's signed till the end of 2024, making $3.9 million a year. He will expire as an RFA, but he has had a little bit of a speed bump in his career so far. He was very good. .917 save percentage in his rookie year, .926 save percentage in the 2020 bubble playoffs, but after a little bit of a roadblock in 2021 and a slow rebound in 2022, you have yourselves Carter Hart today, who had a .907 save percentage in 55 freaking games played. The guy played a boatload for the Flyers this season, and you could debate that with a better team in front of him, he might actually rebound and become the goalie we all thought he would be when he was making his debut. And so now, with the rumors surrounding other teams like the Red Wings and the Canadiens, we have Elliotte Friedman giving his insight as to what the situation could entail. This is what he said on the recent 32 Thoughts pod. I think there's going to be some teams here we haven't thought about in regards to Carter Hart. You know, someone suggested to me Montreal maybe. They have Jake Allen for another year. Montembeault had a really good season and a really good World Hockey Championships, but Hart has a higher ceiling. Before we read the other tweet here, yeah, Carter Hart to Montreal, we had already done that song and dance, so you can check out the previous video if you want to hear our thoughts on that. Also, the comment section was filled with a bunch of Canadiens fans going out there and giving their 2 cents, talking about the arguments, Carter Hart versus Montembeault, Jake Allen is in there too, who do you really want to go with long term if you were given the option to get a Carter Hart. It's all a great discussion, and you can check out the previous video if you want to hear my thoughts on that. But Friedman continues. He also says this: I have had a few people point at the Toronto Maple Leafs. Brad Treliving is the GM in Toronto now, and he makes a lot of calls. He's in on everything, and one of the things that I remembered is that now that Treliving is here, we're going to hear Toronto being involved in more conversations. Now, Carter Hart and the Toronto Maple Leafs is a different idea. And it's one where you really have to start questioning what the deal is with the Maple Leafs and their situation, should you proceed with Carter Hart. Right now, at the time of recording this audio, Ilya Samsonov has not been given an extension. He is still an RFA, so this is a guy that if you really want to keep him around, you're gonna have to shell out money for him. That's been the problem that Treliving was given when he was acquired as the Maple Leafs GM. Money. Not everybody is going to be cheap. Not everybody is going to be available to re-sign because you just have so few dollars on your payroll. But if you are unconfident that you're going to be able to sign a guy like Samsonov to a cap hit that is cheaper than Carter Hart and his $3.9 million AAV, then you might be able to say, why not trade Samsonov away? Maybe put him in this Carter Hart deal, make a swap of RFAs, and the Flyers can go out there and shell out money for Samsonov. Matt Murray is still on this team. He's making $4.6 million a year. That's a lot of money right there. But when it comes to the talent, when it comes to the actual play on the ice, Samsonov was the guy. We all saw him in the postseason. He was good, and the Maple Leafs unfortunately kind of let him down in that second round series against the Panthers. Regardless, though, Ilya Samsonov is a guy who, in my mind's eye, I don't see having as high of a ceiling as Carter Hart. If you were to ask me, make a bet, 10 years from now, who is the better goaltender over the span of their entire careers, I'd probably say that Carter Hart has it in him to rebound and become what he was in his rookie season, but better as time goes on from here on out. I don't necessarily think Samsonov has that same type of a ceiling, and so if I'm Brad Treliving and I'm forced to make a decision with the goaltending, okay, do you re-sign Samsonov Samsonov at a dollar amount or try to get a guy like Carter Hart, like Elliotte Friedman is suggesting here, I would see value in going the Hart route. Of course, it depends on what a trade would cost, what assets the Flyers would want in return. You're probably sending away Samsonov in a trade like this, but what else is there? Do you have a draft pick or two to spare? What is the focus that you put on draft picks or prospects if you're a Maple Leafs team that is focused so much on the now? Kyle Dubas went all in this season. He put all his chips on the table, and he's like, hey, we're going to get McCabe, we're going to get Ryan O'Reilly, we're going to get all these depth guys, Ashari's in there too. The Maple Leafs, for all intents and purposes, went all in. And so, heading into next season, do you want to say that the goaltending is in a spot where you could shell out an asset or two to, instead of go after Samsonov and sign a contract with this guy, you could straight up just say, all right, well, let's get Carter Hart. Let's make a trade for that guy. He's already got a contract. He's on till next year. We could stick around with that. And, best case scenario, Carter Hart rebounds, and he actually does play better than Samsonov in the short term. If you're a Maple Leafs fan, let me know in the comments all your opinions about this idea and whether or not you actually think it's worth exploring. Do you think Carter Hart should be a target for the Toronto Maple Leafs? I know it's a meme. Everybody gets linked to Toronto all the time, and this video is no exception. It's Elliotte Friedman going out there and saying it on his podcast, but with this idea in mind, I wanted to make a video about it and also talk about the Canadiens too. I know we've spent this entire time talking about Toronto, and I did use the caveat earlier saying that we had already talked about the Canadiens and Carter Hart, but if you're a Canadiens fan still tuned in, what are your opinions on the idea of Carter Hart heading over to one of these Canadian teams? We had seen a conversation pop up about the Red Wings as well, so I guess you could let your thoughts be known on that too, but if you're a Maple Leafs fan, or not a Maple Leafs fan, excuse me, if you're a Canadiens fan, what are your thoughts on the Maple Leafs getting in some sort of a bidding war with Montreal for Carter Hart as a goaltender? We'd already seen what Danny Briere, Flyers GM, said about it, that he has to listen, and so that kind of implies that there will be some sort of a market for this guy, and that teams will be interested in shelling out assets to get him. If you're Montreal, and you're not confident in Allen and Montembeault, you want a 1A, 1B of Montembeault Hart instead, what exactly is the max that you'd be willing to pay to get Carter Hart from Philadelphia, and do you think it's enough to outbid Toronto? If the Maple Leafs go Samsonov plus a few other things, do you think Kent Hughes has it in him to one-up Brad Treliving in this respect? And of course, if you are a Philadelphia Flyers fan, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know a lot of Flyers fans tune in just to see what it is that everybody talks about in regards to their players. So if there's some sort of a bidding war for Hart, what do you realistically think you could get? And if it's from Toronto or Montreal or heck, even the Red Wings, what is it that you would want from any of these teams for Carter Hart? We know that Hart was supposed to be your goaltender of the future, and I'm not going to go out there and dispute the idea that he could still be that. It's just at 24 years old, with the direction the Flyers are heading down, you may be going towards a rebuild, you just traded away Provorov, Danny Briere is going to go out there, and he's going to start doing some work. He already got a pretty good return for Provorov a few days ago. So for Carter Hart, where do you think he goes next? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Carter Hart heading over to either the Toronto Maple Leafs and or the Montreal Canadiens. Link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and listen to the full 32 Thoughts audio from last episode. So give Friedman his props, listen to the full quote in context. It's all there in the description. But for Carter Hart, thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.